Hello, Garstor here, after an unintended absence making YouTube videos. This video is recorded with the brand new Camtasia 9 that was released earlier this week. Feature I would like to discuss in UV layout today is the Copy UVs. So I've got here a fairly simple castle model. In fact, it's so simple there isn't even any doors into it. But as you can see, it's fairly box-like, so it should be very easy to unwrap. But I want to draw your attention to the corbels around each of these towers. They are a little bit more complicated. And there's a lot of them. There's 5 on each side of the tower, so 20 per tower, and 4 towers. That's 80 corbels to unwrap. So let's get to it. I'm going to pull this one corbel away so that we can focus on that and take a look at it a little bit more easily. So you can see we've got a decorative little extrusion there, but some flat faces on either side. So I think we should unwrap the sides first. Let's make our cuts with the C key. Press the Enter key to commit those cuts. And we'll drop those 2 shells down to the UV space with the D key. So now we're left with a slightly more complicated piece. When you have curving edges like this, you're probably going to get distortion if you leave them attached together. So it's usually best to cut these apart. And where the angles are sharpest is probably your best bet. So let's cut along there, and along there, and along there. And we'll press Enter to commit all those cuts and drop these shells down to the UV space. Press the 1 key to switch to the UV space, and here we are with our 0 to 1 UV area, and these shells are just a tiny little piece of that in the lower corner. So here's our 2 side pieces that are already flat, so let's just press the F key to flatten those, and they turn a nice green color, so we don't have any distortion here. And these pieces here might get a little more interesting. So we'll press the F key here, okay, and here, and here. And it looks like they all flattened out quite nicely. A little bit unexpected there, actually. So now we've got a corbel that's completely flattened out. But we've got 6 shells. And it is probably a better idea if we actually kept them together as much as possible to make a single shell. Or if not a single shell, at least reduce the number from 6. So let's start welding some edges together. Hit the W key on this edge here, and we can see that it lines up with this piece here. So with the mouse hovered over that, I'm going to press the M key for move. And it just moves that shell into place. And the Enter key commits that weld. I'm going to do the same thing up here. You can't quite see it, but it's going to link up to this edge here. So same trick. M key to move. Enter key to commit. And let's rotate this around a little bit. What else can we connect? What's this edge joining to? It joins to this, and this edge is going to join to the other side. So we can't put this together in one single weld like that. So let's just move that into place. Oops, wrong one. Move that out of the way. Commit that weld. Where do these things fit? Okay, the blue edging here marks where, if you recall, if we go back to the edit room here, and we pull another corbel away from the wall and focus in on that, you can see the blue edging is an edge where I actually removed this back polygon that I had here, because this is actually stuck inside the model and you're not going to see it. But UV layout knows that this edge is not connected to any other polygons, except the visible pieces here. So that's just what the blue means. So we're not going to be able to do much with this piece, I think. If we hit the W key, we see, okay, it would join up with that if we were to weld it. But I'm going to hit the backspace over that and not weld it. And then this piece here was the curving piece in through the middle. And each of these edges along here would join up and try to fit into this curving section here. So we're not going to be able to weld this with distortion free. If we try to weld this into place, we're going to end up with distortion. So it's probably best to leave it alone. There, you can see where these would link up here. So backspace to clear that. So we've got 3 shells rather than 6. And that's probably where we'll leave this. So let's just move these into place a little bit. And now I'm going to press the 3 key to go to the 3D view. So here's the model. And if we rotate around a little bit, we can see that corbel that we just unwrapped. And of course it's colored nicely green because it's perfectly flat and distortion free. Well, that's 1 down. That's 79 to go. Well, even though we know where to make our cuts, that's still a little bit tedious. And this is where the Copy UVs feature comes in. And in my opinion, this feature alone makes UV layout worth the purchase. So here's Copy UVs. And if we click the Copy UVs button, we can look at the menu down at the bottom. The left mouse button is to toggle edges, and then equals finds the same pattern, and dash finds a similar pattern, and plus finds all. So what we want to do is do a left mouse button on any one of these edges, and it highlights in red there. And I find just pressing equals is the best bet. If all these meshes are clones of one another, so find same should work just fine. If there were very slight variations between the meshes, but they looked pretty similar, then the find similar might work for you. But generally, I just use find same. So press the equals key, and it thinks about it, and as you can see, it's gone and found everything. So here's all 80 corbels. It's found matches the shape that we've already edited. So if you're happy with that selection, you can press space to continue. And if you're not happy and you want to try again, press enter to abort. But I am happy with this, so I'm going to press the space bar. And UV layout starts calculating and repeating all the cuts that we made on that first corbel. It's applying them to the other 79 corbels. And there we go. Now, one other thing I want to point out here is these options along beside the Copy UVs button is Stack, U, and V. So if we return to the UV view by pressing the 1 key, you can see here's where we left the original corbel that we sliced up. But if we move these off, you'll see that all those shells are actually stacked on top of one another. And that's a good way to save a lot of your UV space. If you're really cramped for space and you've got a really complicated model with lots of individual UV islands, stacking them is a pretty useful way to save a lot of space. The only downside to that is that you are going to get the exact same texture on all 80 corbels. So the exact same colors, the exact same roughness or specularity or whatever your map is going to apply it on all 80 corbels. And if you're up close with your camera and when you're rendering this, it'll look pretty obvious that it's copies. So you actually might want to separate these. So let's undo this, restack them, and I'm going to press undo one more time, and that should undo the Copy UVs. Yep, here we are. So We're back in 3D view. And let's do Copy UVs, but this time we're going to hit the U button. Copy UVs. Pick an edge with the left mouse button. Equals to find same. It finds them all. Let's space to continue. Cuts them all up again. There we go. And if we go to the UV view with the number 1 key, you can see everything's laid out here. All 80 corbels have been sliced up and flattened. Now don't worry about all these shells extending past the UV space. Each one of these UV tiles is a single UV space. And you can see that it gives a percentage of coverage here. I'm not sure why it's saying 100%. That must be a math error because clearly it's not 100% filled. But we can rearrange all of these, and we'll examine the packing feature of UV layout in a future video. But you can manually arrange these by just selecting a bunch, moving them, selecting another bunch, moving them, etc., and just move everything into a single UV tile if you like. The advantage of having all of these completely separated, although it takes up a lot more space in your 0 to 1 space, is each of those 80 corbels can now have a completely different texture. So it'll look a lot more realistic. And you probably want something like this. If you're using tools like a Allegorithmics Substance Painter or the Quixel suite, then you're probably going to want to have all these shells separated and not stacked. I'm not sure if those tools have any problems with stacked UVs or not. I haven't tried experimenting with that, and I may do that in the future. But there you go. What could have been a very tedious job, we actually accomplished in just a few seconds. So this is a real time saver. If you're doing a lot of UV unfolding with your modeling, then I highly recommend UV Layout and the Copy UVs feature. Hopefully it's obvious how useful this is, but you can just imagine, lampposts as on a street scene, or columns in a temple, or a palace, or fencing, anything that has repeated shapes, and even if it's very simple to unwrap, like a column. If you've got a lot of columns, this will save you a ton of time. I did have a model a couple of months ago that I was working on. It was a sort of a girder structure, much like would support a roof in a big store like Walmart, or perhaps an overhead highway sign. And so I had a lot of little cylinders to represent the trussing of the girders. And I probably had close to 1,000 little trusses in this model. So even though it was a very easy unwrap with just being a column, having 1,000 of them would have still taken probably a few hours to unwrap, and this feature did it in just a few seconds. So again, really useful. Hope you enjoyed this new video, and look for more videos in the future. I hope I will not be having as long a delay between videos as this last one. Thanks again for watching. Bye.